Hey everybody, it is Tuesday and it is June 2nd, and today we're doing chapters 24, 25, and 26. I hope you all are having a good day, and I know I am. Grace, I'm sure, will be starting the watch party any minute, so let's get started on chapter 24. Hello Diane, and hi Mitch. And hello, Grace, and thanks for setting up the watch party. This Friday, we're doing the Zoom lunch, so bring your lunch at 1 p.m. Central Time. The link is in the fan groups. Just look for the pizza graphic. And after that, we're going to go to one a month. We're going to do it the first Friday of every month. We'll still do a Zoom lunch, and 5 fans can win a pizza. And hi, Diane. So, hope everyone's having a peaceful day, and we will get started. Chapter 24. Daniel's Jaguar sped along the rural Quebec road en route to what was supposed to be an abandoned Catholic church. The mission was simple enough: check out the site to see if he could gather any information about a portal opening artifact. The company had followed several suspicious and gory deaths all over the world in the past few months, all associated with an anti-magic terrorist group, New Veil. The agent's assignment included investigating a few unusual local reports outside Montreal. Initial intelligence had pointed toward the Netherlands, but they'd gotten a hit the day before from some information in Montreal. New Veil was not previously known to be active in Canada, and he wasn't supposed to engage any targets. They hate magic. They'll still use artifacts, thought Daniel. Gotta love human consistency. Guess it doesn't matter. Not that he was surprised. All sorts of terrorists and revolutionaries throughout history had walked far more contradictory paths of horrific violence in the name of peace and putting an end to the bloodshed. Maybe it was human nature to turn into what you hated, or maybe it was something darker. Give a person an excuse to kill people and provide a self-righteous explanation, and they'll gladly sign up, thought Daniel. I bet the average terrorist doesn't even really give a shit about their cause at the end of the day. Nothing more than people justifying murder. Is that what the CIA has become, or only Fortis? Daniel gritted his teeth. He had to push Buckley's death out of his head like Tim had said. That didn't change the fact that people working for the U.S. government had murdered a man for investigating a potential threat to the country. If Fortis were really about protecting the U.S. If the Fortis were really about protecting the U.S. instead of protecting their own interests, they would have recruited the man, not killed him. Fuck you, Fortis. It might not be in your face right now, but I will not let you get away with what you've done. You've murdered innocent Americans, and you've murdered loyal CIA agents. Tell me how you're different to the supposed threats you're fighting. He sighed. If he'd been less suspicious, he might have picked up on what was actually bothering Buckley and recruited him to Tim's team. If the other agent had known about everyone else, he wouldn't have brought attention to himself with his dangerous tactics. Daniel's third phone buzzed with a message, knocking him out of his brooding. He glanced down at the message. Activate your receiver. The agent raised an eyebrow and reached up to squeeze his earlobe. He had a lot of things to get used to now. What's up? You're not getting shot at, are you? Timothy asked over the link. At least not at the moment. Not yet, anyway. I'm still a good 45 minutes from the site. Why? Does it turn out these terrorists have links to alien craft? At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. The older man snorted. That'd be convenient since you're already on your way, but nothing like that. The company doesn't even think those guys are important enough to give you active support. But I did want to make you aware of something. Something I feel you deserve to know. Daniel did a quick mirror check, then looked at his side and rear cameras. No one else was on the road with him. After Ronnie and Buckley, he was more worried about Fortis killing him than terrorists or foreign intelligence. Need them to install radar on this thing. Someday a helicopter will surprise me. What is it, Tim? Is this about Buckley? No. There's nothing we can do about that, and I stand by what I said. We're not ready to take them on directly, and that's even if it's a good idea. This isn't about Buckley and what they did to him. It's about you. What? Has Fortis made me? They must have seen me with him. Daniel frowned. He almost hoped they had. Truth be told, he wouldn't go down easily, and he'd make them pay for what they'd done. No, not yet, thank God. Timothy took a deep breath. I came across some files. Or it'd be more accurate to say I borrowed some files from the company that I've been trying to get access to for a while. Most of it wasn't anything new. It just talked about the visitors, things like Nephilim and Ragnarok, but he sighed. Daniel frowned. But what? Don't hold back on me now. I'm not merely in too deep. I'm at the bottom of the damn ocean. There was a report in there, Daniel, something I'd never seen before about an investigation into an incident in Belize. Daniel's heart sped up and his jaw clenched. Belize? What about it? There were some unusual energy readings detected from a couple of sites there. The agency sent some men down to check it out. From what they could pick up, some ruins in a village had simply disappeared. It was like they were never there. But when they did follow up, with interrogation of other locals, they found out about 2 Americans who'd been in the area, tomb raiders who were looking into it. His hands shook and Daniel tightened them around the wheel. They knew. Who? He snapped. You already knew the answer to that from the sound of it. Daniel snorted. You're telling me that the CIA knew this entire time what happened to my parents, and they never bothered to mention that in all the years I've worked for them? A few beats of silence passed before Timothy answered. Some people in the CIA might have known. I didn't. But whoever prepared these reports definitely knew they were your parents, because there were some additional notes added about you when you joined the CIA. And that's not all. Daniel's fingers further tightened around the wheel. Oh? His mentor drew a deep breath. There are 2 recorded statements from witnesses that talk about seeing the Americans after the disappearance of the village in the ruins. I see. Daniel swallowed. He wasn't sure if it was too good to be true or a cruel and tantalizing promise of something he could never have. Timothy released a nervous chuckle. You don't seem at all surprised. Sorry, Tim, thought Daniel. Even after all this, I need to keep a few secrets of my own. I can't trust anyone completely, not even you. Nothing surprises me anymore, Daniel replied, but thanks for telling me, Tim. I'm sorry, Daniel. I wish I had known sooner. Daniel's laugh sounded strained, even to his ears. I don't even know if it would have made any difference. They might be alive, but no one has any idea where they are. For now, I need to get into the headspace for the mission. Talk to you later. Yeah, be careful. Daniel reached up to squeeze his earlobe, taking a few deep breaths and trying to calm his pounding heart. Timothy was right. Given that he already knew his parents might have lived, hearing that wasn't a surprise, but the agency had betrayed him. They knew the entire time that his mother and father might still be alive, but hadn't seen fit to pass that information on to him, even after he joined the CIA. Why, if anything, it seems like you're like something you tell a man. That is, unless you're responsible for those people disappearing. If Fortas had killed his parents because they found evidence of aliens, he'd burn their entire group to the ground, no matter what it took, and dance in the ashes. Some things a man simply couldn't forgive. Buckley's death was bad enough, but now they'd gone and made it personal. You don't fuck with dogs and family. Daniel parked the car about a half-mile from the abandoned building. Skulking through the woods brought him within sight of the church. He didn't see any cars outside or drones in the sky, but that didn't mean no one was there. There was also the possibility of magical detection, even with an allegedly anti-magic group. At least I don't have to watch anyone's back but my own out here. Daniel slipped the AR glasses out of his pocket and put them on. They were stylish enough to be fashionable and functional at the same time. He activated the thermal scan mode. 4 humanoids were detected inside, all with normal human temperature ranges. That was promising. Daniel could probably handle 4 people. He was half worried he'd stumbled into dozens of terrorists. The agent tilted his head. It was hard to tell using only thermal scans, but it was obvious that 3 of the people moved their arms freely, but the 4th one knelt on the ground with their arms behind their back and their wrists together. Not suspicious at all. Having a little falling out, are we? Time for a closer look. He deactivated thermal scanning mode and pulled out his chameleon ball. This crap better work this time, and for more than a minute. Daniel snorted and activated the gadget. Soon he winked mostly out of existence, a ghost of twisted light. Noticeable enough close up, but still hard to spot. He sprinted out of the woods toward the church. If the terrorists were having a disagreement, it might be a good time to grab the artifact, assuming they had it with them. Cracked and rotted wood covered the structure, along with the overgrown weeds. A tree had been felled by a storm and smashed through a window. The stained glass that had once stood above the altar was gone, leaving the interior completely exposed to the elements, along with many holes in the roof. It was no longer a holy place, but a shrine to decay and abandonment. He peered through a muddy side window. 3 men surrounded a kneeling, handcuffed man. The prisoner stared at the ground, his face pale and his expression haunted. The men wore casual outfits like anyone he might see on the street. Not that he expected them to wear official terrorist uniforms, no matter how convenient it might be. What the hell is going on? The agent moved to the side and deactivated the chameleon ball since he had no idea how it might interfere with the other toys he wanted to use. He needed to remember to ask Nessie about that. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick black listening glove and a normal earbud. He put both on and waited for them to sync. This glove didn't work so well last time I needed it. Let's see how it does now. He pressed his fingers against the wall and slowed his breathing. We have to do this for the cause, a quiet voice stated through his earbud. I know it might be hard to appreciate that such sacrifices are necessary, but you have to think of the enormity of what we can save. The kneeling man shook his head. You're insane. I never agreed to this. That woman only said I should stop by to talk to someone about signing a provincial anti-magic petition. Something about getting a law passed to restrict public magic use. You know, to protect the children. Yes, we will protect the children. We will use the tools of these new invaders to do just that. It's merely that we have to refine the tools first for them to be effective, and that requires tests, particularly on living subjects. Can't you use animals or something? The other man whimpered. Come on, I just bought a new car the other day. I've barely driven it. No, we need to see its effects on all manners of thinking beings. Sorry, but know that what you sacrifice today is in service to a humanity free from the oppression of magic. You don't die a victim, but a martyr to the greatest cause our world has ever known. This is bullshit, the kneeling man yelled, his eyes pleading. You have to let me go. Please, I'm begging you. I won't tell anyone. I'll forget completely about you and pretend this was all a bad dream. Daniel hissed as the earbud screeched in his ear. He yanked it out and shook his head, trying to ignore the buzzing. He looked up as he realized there was a bigger problem. A swirling vortex floated in the center of the church. The three terrorists held small glowing leaves in the air. Tendrils of energy connected the leaves to the center of the portal. The agent took a deep breath. His orders were to observe and not engage. It took him about 2 seconds to disregard them. Shit, screw collecting intel. They've got the damn thing right there. Well, things. I won't let them kill someone and run off. Daniel sprinted around the corner to the front door. He kicked the rotting wood off its hinges and charged in with his gun out. The terrorists snapped their heads to his direction. Thank God, the kneeling man's eyes widened. I'm already in a really pissy mood, Daniel shouted. Drop the artifacts, put your hands above your heads, and get on the ground if you want to live. This doesn't have to get bloody, but don't try my patience. One of the terrorists snorted. You have a gun. Yeah, it's got bullets too. They hurt when they hit you. The other man sighed. My point is, you're not a filthy magic user. Daniel smirked. Says the asshole generating a magic portal. The man shook his head. Members of the New Veil pollute themselves to save the rest of us. Some groups obsess over the non-humans, but the New Veil isn't specious. We'd accept any who came over from Orisarin if they forswore the abomination of the natural order that is magic. Are you so sure, my brother, that you're pointing a weapon at the right people? Magic subverts the natural order and makes a mockery of the expected. You've been killing people to test an artifact. A better future always involves difficulties. You're law enforcement of some type, yes? Are you saying you've never killed someone in the line of duty to protect and preserve the peace? Daniel shook his head. I don't have time for your bullshit. His gaze dropped to the man in handcuffs. I've seen pictures, you know, of people cut in half or worse. What? You don't know how to use it right? So you're merely dumping bodies into the portal until you figure it out? You're twisted. All wars require sacrifices, and this is a war for all existence. The terrorist shook his head. Would you wait until nothing makes sense? Until we live in a pseudo-virtual world and not reality? That's the real insanity, not what we do. Daniel gave him a hungry grin. Last chance. Deactivate the artifact and surrender. The only reason I haven't shot you already is that I'm sure a couple of nice friends of mine have a few questions for you and all your terrorist buddies. The victim watched, trembling in silence. The group exchanged glances and nodded. That's either very good or very bad. All three men turned in unison. The portal soared through the church, slicing through the dusty pews on a direct path to Daniel. Okay, very bad. A portal that can move. He jumped to the side, the deadly magic missing him by a few inches, and fired at the first terrorist. Several birds in the rafters launched into flight and headed for the holes in the roof. The earlier destruction of the door apparently not frightening enough. The bullet vanished, then emerged from the gateway to strike the wall right behind him. Oh, that's just perfect, Daniel moaned. Betting you assholes already knew about that. 2 quick shots at the other 2 terrorists ended with a bullet flying out of the magic aperture and missing Daniel's head by inches. Yeah, this is suboptimal. Not fun. His enemies continued to turn, guiding their deadly magic. The portal missed him again and cut into a wall near the front of the building. After a few seconds, it backed up, but took a few seconds to get up to speed. The agent's constant movement saved him again as the swirling vortex of death zoomed by him. These guys should stop worrying about teleporting with the thing and just use it to cut buildings up. Sweat poured down their faces as they continued to move their arms and carve the interior of the church with their magic. Daniel dodged and jumped out of the way. The portal's movements were slowing and the men's breathing grew more ragged. The agent holstered his pistol and concentrated on jumping, leaping, and vaulting between pews to avoid being chopped into pieces. I need to figure out a solution. Grenade will only come out the other end. An EMP won't do anything against the magical artifact. Damn, what can I do? If I try to hit them, it'll just... Wait a second. Maybe, just maybe. He spun and fired several times into the vortex as it flew right at him. Then he dropped to the ground, hissing at the searing pain as the portal sliced through his suit and into his shoulder. Daniel crawled forward, keeping his back low as the vortex hung over him. His heart thundered and his shoulder throbbed as he jumped to his feet and spun toward the terrorists. They all lay on the ground, bleeding from multiple chest wounds. Shaking, they kept a grip on the glowing leaves, but the portal had stopped moving. Here's a little experiment for you assholes. He aimed at the gateway and emptied his clip. The terrorists jerked with the impacts, their hands opening and the leaves sliding out, and the portal vanished. Daniel ejected his magazine and slipped it into his pocket. No reason to leave the locals any additional evidence linking the deaths to him. The shell casings were generic enough that it wouldn't matter as long as they didn't have his gun. He reloaded his pistol and holstered it before pulling out a small, static-free bag. Time to worry about his original mission. I can't imagine they'll bitch that much that I collected the artifact. Well, artifacts. The handcuffed man looked with wide eyes from the dead men to Daniel. Thank you for saving me, but who the hell are you? Think of me as a very pissed off Mountie. The agent grabbed the leaves and slipped them into the bag. He slid the bag in his pocket and pulled out a small auto-injector. What's that? He smiled. Just a little something to calm you down. You've been through a traumatic experience. I'll contact the local authorities to come and pick you up, and I don't think it'd be nice to make you sit here with a bunch of dead guys. The man blinked. Why not take me with you? Oh, that would bring up more questions, ones I don't want to answer, like who I am. The prisoner furrowed his brow. Thought you said you were with the RCMP. Daniel shook his head. Okay, yeah, go with that when they ask you. He pulled the cap off the auto-injector. The other thing about this drug is that it destroys the last few hours of memories. The locals won't be able to question you about the new Veil guys, but it doesn't really matter since I killed them and took their artifacts. Or maybe you'll only remember being asked about signing their petition. He frowned. It's almost a shame. Don't want you to get mixed up with them again, but then again, being found by the cops around a bunch of new Veil guys will probably get the message across. He placed the injector against the man's neck. Great, of course, the man groaned. It's been a real shitty week. The agent shrugged. At least you won't remember the last few hours. Doesn't help that much, but thanks anyway. Daniel pressed the activation button, and a needle shot out with a click. The man winced and took several deep breaths, not saying anything. 30 seconds later, his eyes rolled toward the back of his head and he fell to the ground unconscious, drool leaking from his mouth. The agent patted the pocket containing the bag. Okay, so I went a little above and beyond the call, but at least I got the artifact, and there are 3 fewer crazy terrorists in the world. Calmly, he retrieved another auto-injector containing an analgesic and stuck it directly into his wounded shoulder. Damn, that was close. The agent was halfway back to the airport when his personal phone rang. He pulled it out, surprised, and winced from the shoulder wound. It was rare that anyone called him on the phone except his grandfather, and the man had taken a short trip to Savannah to look into buying some items for the shop. Peter was supposed to be retired, but it seemed he would never be able to hand over the reins to Daniel completely. Not a bad thing, considering how often the younger man had to be out of town. There was also the small possibility the old man was lying to him and the trip was about some strange alien discovery, but at this point, it didn't make much sense for his grandfather to hold back. The call wasn't from Thomas, though, but Charlie. Daniel recognized the number. It was from the burner phone he'd given him. Charlie? Daniel answered. I know you're out of town on a buying trip, but you have to come back right away. I saw some people breaking into your shop. I tried to call the cops, but it went somewhere else, I think. Daniel frowned. What? Yeah, I dialed 911. They asked me to report my emergency. I said Rooney's Antiquities was getting broken into, and they told me if I didn't want to end up with my throat cut, I'd better mind my own damn business. The store owner sighed. This is my fault. How the hell is this your fault? That guy you beat up the other day in my store, he probably did it. Him and some buddies. Daniel had his doubts about whether that kind of scumbag or his crew would be able to intercept a cell phone call, but he also had to admit it wasn't impossible. Don't worry about it. You called me, and I'll be back in town in a few hours. On my way to the airport now, and it turns out I only had to go to Canada instead of the Netherlands. Don't go anywhere near the shop, and don't call anybody else, okay? Okay, I'm sorry, Daniel. The agent chuckled. The only people who should be sorry are the ones who broke my store. Now on to chapter 25. With a heavy sigh, Daniel shook his head. He'd circled the building, and although everything else looked untouched, the back door of the shop was wide open. The break-in lacked subtlety. Someone had shot through the lock. He slipped his gloves on, pulled the door open, and stepped inside. If those muggers noticed where we came from, they might have been able to call somebody from jail. Revenge for getting involved in this business, maybe. A few dirty footprints marred the floor, but there wasn't any damage and no additional signs of gunshots. It didn't make sense. If someone had broken into the shop for revenge, they would have trashed everything in sight, especially if they had a gun. If the breakup wasn't for revenge, if the break-in wasn't for revenge, then the next most likely motivation was robbery. A shop like his had more than a few valuable items, even if many people in the neighborhood didn't realize that. He opened the door to a storage room near the back and peeked inside. Nothing was missing or out of order. He frowned. Everything felt wrong. If they'd shot the lock, someone would have heard. Unless they had weapons they could use it, no one could hear. A commercial silencer would still be pretty loud. Plus, the alarm would have gone off. Even if they had black market jammers, it wouldn't be enough to beat some of the physical lines powered by the battery backups. This wasn't some random punks from my neighborhood. Whoever did this was a professional with expensive gear. Daniel's stomach tightened as he walked to the main shop floor. A hint of suspicion about the culprits was forming in his mind, and he didn't like where it led him. Most people would have been happy with what he spotted on the main shop floor. All the objects and minor artifacts were still there. Nothing lay on the ground. No shelves were damaged or knocked over. Someone had gone to the trouble of breaking into his home in a very obvious manner and then did absolutely no damage and stole nothing from his shop. Maybe they were looking for something they knew would be hidden. He hurried up to the apartment and checked all the rooms quickly. His grandfather's room was untouched. Not only was there no obvious damage or trespassing, but the apartment door had been locked. Damn it, they couldn't have found it, could they? One final but serious possibility remained. His heart pounding, Daniel rushed into the basement and over to the wall concealing the vault. He placed his hand near the hidden trigger and waited for the hum and the wall to slide down. Quickly, he entered the code and pressed his thumb against the DNA scanner, his heart pounding the entire time. After a turn of the wheel, he pulled the door open and flipped the lights on inside. His shoulder sent out a sharp jolt of pain, making him grimace. If they got the gun, we're screwed. They'll be coming back for us too. Now they know the kinds of things we're hiding in here. What the hell? Daniel looked back and forth among the racks. Not a single speck of dust seemed to be out of place. The Munich gun still lay exactly where he placed it, along with several of the more dangerous artifacts that they couldn't exactly stick upstairs for casual sale. He stepped out of the vault, closed it, and entered a few commands into the keypad to bring a false wall into place. With a frown, Daniel walked up the basement stairs. Someone had managed to enter his shop without tripping the alarm. They had taken nothing and disturbed nothing. A break-in with no damage and a robbery with no theft. Nothing about the situation made any sense. The pests he'd run into lacked that kind of restraint, which suggested one strong possibility. The CIA, either the main company or Fortis. Why would the company come here? Were they looking for something? Were they looking for alien tech but didn't find the vault? Daniel stopped at the top of the basement stairs and shook his head. If revenge or robbery weren't the motives, one other possibility remained. Intimidation. Maybe it was a warning to keep his nose out of alien business. He laughed, half convinced that explained everything. You assholes should have put more effort into reading my psychological profile. I don't take kindly to threats. Tommy whistled as he strolled down the street. His dad had laid off him for the last few days about being a musician, and even school hadn't been all that bad. It was like his luck had turned around all at once. Life was actually approaching bearable, and it had been a long time since he felt that way. His mom might still be MIA, but he could deal with things as long as his dad wasn't a total dick and he had someone like Daniel in his corner. The man helped remind the half-elf that things wouldn't always be rough, if only he could stick it out. Too bad he's not my dad, thought Tommy. Can choose your friends but not your family. How fair is that? The boy sighed and shook his head. Yo, kid! A deep voice called from behind him. The teen turned. 4 rough-looking men stood there, decked out in tacky shirts and gold chains. He didn't recognize them from around the neighborhood. Thought so, universe. Can't have Tommy happy for a few minutes without messing with him. Totally fair. Yeah. What's up, dude? Tommy asked, keeping his tone polite. No reason to piss the men off. The sneers on their faces told him they were looking for trouble. He'd probably just been the first unlucky bastard to run into them. One of the men stepped forward. You're Tommy, right? Who's asking? He frowned. Who the hell are these guys? The stranger chuckled. I'm asking, you little half-Ori bitch. Are you Tommy? He punctuated each syllable of the last sentence by punching his palm. The boy sighed. If they wanted to find someone with Orsaran blood to beat up, there were plenty of neighborhoods where full bloods were a little more common. Maybe they'd asked if there were any Orsarans in the neighborhood and someone pointed them his way. Screw this, I'm out of here. Tommy turned and started walking away. Sometimes he could end these types of encounters simply by not giving the bastards the fear they wanted. He'd been bullied his entire life in school. These men were merely the latest, albeit a little larger than his normal bullies. The thugs rushed to surround him on all sides. He looked between them. Come on. The man who had spoken before raised a finger and wagged it. Who said you could leave, Tommy? I don't think I did. I haven't heard shit out of any of these guys. It sounded like they did either. Look, dude, I don't have anything on me. If this is about money, there are way richer people than me. Even the bums around here are richer than me. I'm nothing. I'm not worth it. Good that you know your place. The thug laughed. He leaned forward and gave the boy a feral grin. But you know, I promised my boys a little something, so it's not like I can let you go. Some things are more important than money, like pride. Not that something like you has any. Tommy reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He yanked out the small amount of cash and handed it over. You guys look pretty tough. Why aren't you mugging some business jerk? They'd at least have an expensive watch or something. The man slapped the wallet and money out of the boy's hand. I ain't said nothing about wanting cash. Now I'm insulted. I just told you how this was about pride. Now I feel like maybe you're trying to pick a fight with me. I'm sorry, sir. Maybe appealing to their sense of superiority would work. The aggressor's lips curled back into a sneer. If you're so sorry, then maybe you should get down and lick my boots to prove it. The half-elf blinked and stared at the man. What the hell is wrong with you, dude? Lick your shoes? You hear that, guys? This little half-Ori thinks he's better than me. The thug shook out his hands. I've been really nice here, and you had to go and insult me. Like I said, a matter of pride. If I walk away now, then I'll be the bitch, not you, and I can't have that. Should I yell for someone, thought Tommy. Damn it, no one's around. I just have to get away, but how? Wait, that might work. Swallowing, the boy reached into his pocket to pull out the web cube. The thug sucker punched him in the stomach. Tommy fell to his knees, gasping and holding his stomach. It was hard not to throw up. Leave me alone, he wheezed. The man slammed a fist into his face. The half-elf sprawled to the ground, his face throbbing. His attacker laughed. You tried to stab me? Is that what you think you can do? This ain't your planet. Humans rule here. You should be glad we didn't drop nukes on your asses the minute you showed up with your hocus pocus. The teen wiped blood off his mouth. I was born on Earth, in this city, in this neighborhood. I deserve to be here as much as you. Now you're talking back. The man kicked him hard in the side. This ain't Orsaran. You don't run shit here, elf boy. Screw you. Why don't you show us some magic, elf boy? Ain't you gonna curse us? The man kicked Tommy again. The boy gritted his teeth. The last thing he wanted to do was give him the satisfaction of hearing him cry out. He closed his eyes. They took turns kicking and punching and laughing the entire time. He curled into a ball. His jaw clenched as pain spiked through every part of his body. He wasn't sure how long they continued attacking him, but it felt like an eternity before the blows finally stopped. His body and limbs throbbed, but he dared to open his eyes. The main thug crouched right in front of him, his gun pointed at Tommy's head. So I'm thinking, maybe some of those crazies got it right. You know, Humanity Defense League, New Vale, all of them. They say they're all violent, but being violent doesn't mean you're wrong. The man shrugged and tapped his gun against his knees. We don't need no more people on this planet, and you fuckers come here and flash your little magical dicks around like you own us. I don't get it. He looked at his friends. Do any of you get it? They all grinned and shrugged. See? They don't get it. Why should we have to give everything up because magic came back? What kind of bullshit is that? Can you tell me that, elf boy? Tommy shook his head, tears streaming from his eyes. I want to study robots, not magic. He managed to pull out the web cube, his hand shaking. Technology. That's as human as possible. The man stood with a grin and kicked the cube out of Tommy's hand, then marched over to the cube and stomped it with a boot until nothing remained but a black pile of broken plastic, metal, and goo. My webs, the teen whimpered. You broke it, you... He pointed the gun at the boy again. I could waste your ass right here and nobody could do anything about it. That's real power. You understand that? Not some fake bullshit. What would Daniel do, thought Tommy. The boy's eyes widened, but he didn't look away. If he was going to die here, he wanted the assholes to see him defying them to the end. His tormentor laughed. Oh yeah, I like that look. He kept the gun pointed at his victim's head for several long seconds before tucking it in his waistband. Now, you feel free to tell everyone in this neighborhood how we beat your ass down and how they shouldn't fuck with us. We're moving in now, and anyone who gets in our way is going to die. Make sure that bitch who everyone calls the mayor hears it too. He spat on Tommy's face and turned to walk away. The other men fell in behind him, chuckling and high-fiving each other. You might want to get scarce soon, half worried, the man shouted as he walked away. Next time, maybe my finger slips on the trigger. Peter frowned and crossed his arms. He'd returned early from his trip. You're overthinking it. Maybe it was some local punks who got scared. They broke in and realized they were in the wrong shop. Daniel shook his head. Come on, local punks who knew enough to get around the alarm and intercept a phone call? If they had those kinds of skills, they wouldn't be doing random break-ins. It has to be the company. Maybe they don't have direct evidence on me like they did Ronnie or Buckley. You gonna give up now? Those spooks spooked you, did they? Daniel frowned. What if they decide to come after you like they did Buckley? His grandfather snorted. Then I'll make sure I take at least a couple of those bastards with me. I raised you. I'm an old man. If it's my time, it's my time. Don't worry about me. You worry about doing the right thing and take care of that shoulder. Yes, I noticed. You're not an action figure, you know. Go out and save the world without losing your integrity. That's the way your parents raised you, and that's the way I raised you. He crossed his arms. I'd rather die than run off with my tail between my legs because they broke into the shop. The question is, what about you? The agent nodded. You're right. I'm less scared than pissed off. First, the assholes lied to me about my parents, and now they're fucking around in my shop like they own the place. The old man grinned. Good. Don't ever forget who you are, Daniel. Even if you weren't in the CIA, you'd be special. Those idiots should have picked a different man to mess with. I'm tired of them, thought Daniel. Ronnie, my parents, Buckley, they can't simply push around anyone they want to. No. Pops is right. I already drew the line, and they stepped over it. As the front door moved, Daniel snatched up his silence cube and slipped it into his pocket. No CIA agent, thug, or terrorist stepped through the door. Only a young half-elf, much like he did most mornings. The agent looked up, expecting to see Tommy with his coffee like every other morning, but his breath caught when he saw the boy's battered face covered in bruises, and he was limping. One of his arms was pinned to his side, and the half-elf kept it bent. It looked broken. What the hell happened to you? Tommy held up the Green Lantern mug. What are you talking about, dude? Nothing happened to me. I was a little late, so sue me. Daniel sucked in a deep breath, trying to quell the rage that was threatening to spiral out of control. Did his father do this to him? If so, we'll have a very short and painful conversation. I don't care that you're late. I care what you look like. Something obviously happened. You're beaten to hell. Daniel grabbed the mug and set it on the counter, then walked over to Tommy and grabbed his bent arm. Straighten it. The boy shrugged. I can do it. He gritted his teeth as he straightened his arm, his entire body shaking. See? Fine. And I repeat, what the hell happened to you? Who did this to you? Tell me right now. He glared past the boy at the door as if he could teleport the culprits to him by sheer force of will. Peter shook his head. Maybe you shouldn't get involved, Daniel. Call the police and let them handle it. You have a lot of other problems to worry about right now. His grandson shook his head and the old man looked down, pressing his lips together. The legal system wasn't bad, but it was damn slow, and it wasn't like every cop cared what happened to Orsarin or half Orsarins. No, Daniel protected the country, but he also protected the neighborhood. He wouldn't let people beat a boy black and blue on his watch. Tommy sighed. Look, it's embarrassing. I fell on the stairs playing with a cube, you know. Not a big deal. You're wrong. No one kicked my ass. I kicked my own ass. The agent took a deep breath and managed to keep his face from contorting in anger. Just answer me one question, Tommy. Did your father do this to you? Dad? What? No. Disbelief mixed with anger in the boy's eyes. He's annoying as hell, but he's never hit me. Daniel nodded slowly. Tommy lacked the experience to lie convincingly. You didn't fall. Trust me, I've seen enough people beaten up to recognize it. He gestured toward the bruises on the boy's face. You can even see some of the tread pattern from the shoes in the bruising. Who did this, Tommy? Tell me. You know I can handle myself around tough guys. You've seen it. The teen swallowed. You shouldn't mess with these guys, Daniel. This wasn't just some asshole who wanted my wallet. These guys are seriously bad news. New gang, I think. I'm just going to stay out of their way. I think you should too, or they might bust up your shop, or they might kill you, he shuddered. The damn pests again. I've given them 2 warnings. That's more than some people get time to find the nest and fumigate. Daniel nodded quickly at the boy. Yeah, you're probably right. He pulled out several large bills and handed them over. You should go see the doctor, though. Make sure nothing's broken. Tommy blinked at the money. You sure you want to give this to me? This is a lot of money. Yeah, like I said, go to the doctor. You won't be able to be a hero if you're crippled as a kid. The teen managed a short laugh. I could make power armor or an exoskeleton. Touché, but go to the doctor already, Tony Stark. Tommy smiled brightly, then winced. Thanks, dude. I think I'll head home now. You want me to walk with you? He shook his head and motioned towards Daniel's suit. You're all dressed up. Doesn't that mean you have to go meet someone about buying something for the shop? He held up the money. You're already helping me out. Peter released a long sigh. He's right. I'll get him home, Daniel. You better get going to your meeting. He gave his grandson a long, meaningful look. Is that you telling me to stay out of trouble? Thought Daniel. Come on, Pops. You know that won't happen. You're one of the people who taught me to stand up for the little guy. Peter placed his arm gingerly around Tommy's shoulder. You want a fresca? The boy tried to smile and shook his head. They stepped out the door and Daniel's calm mask disappeared, replaced by anger. Guess it's time to teach a few assholes a very, very painful lesson. Chapter 26. Thanks for hanging in there with me. We are getting close to this book being done. 30 minutes later, he sat in the private garage housing his Jaguar, a burner phone to his ear. No reason to give the company or anyone else any links between him and the crime scene he was about to create. The man on the other end laughed. Old Town gangs? Since when did you care about petty shit like that, Daniel? What, did you get fired and now you've taken up bounty hunting or something? Daniel chuckled. No, I'm still gainfully employed. I'm merely a man of varied interests. Now, can you just answer the damn question? I already gave you a nice little deposit up front based on your reputation alone. I'd hate to be disappointed and have to leave a negative review on your little site on the dark web. I can see it now. 1 out of 5 stars. Talks a big game, but can't deliver anything you wouldn't hear from a corner grocer as you buy your bananas. The man snorted. That shit hurts, you know. People take reviews seriously when it comes to less than above-board jobs. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Calm down. I know what you need. I'm merely surprised is all. These guys are all human. No worries or artifacts or any shit like that. Good. Then they'll be easy to handle. I wouldn't say that. They call themselves the Steel Wolves. Used to be a decent-sized gang in Baltimore, but they started some shit with an Ori gang, and it didn't end well. Lost most of their guys and kind of disappeared until rumors of them hitting the D.C. area started popping up. Why do you care? Did they see some shit they shouldn't see? Stumble on an artifact or something? Not that I care what you do to them. I'm curious, that's all. Daniel grunted. You don't need to know. The man laughed. How did I know you were going to say that? You spooks are all the same. Yeah, we are, but you said most of their gang was wiped out already. Yeah, a little over 30 guys survived, I heard. It was a bloodbath. They learned firsthand how a good gun doesn't always work against magic. Some people are still adjusting to the brave new world, even if it isn't that brave anymore. Only 30 guys to begin with, and several of them are in jail or the hospital already. I like my odds here. How do they plan to take over a new neighborhood with only 30 guys? Daniel wondered, especially given the street situation around here. His source laughed. Well, word on the street is there's not much of a gang presence in the neighborhood they're looking at. The street abhors a vacuum as much as nature, you know. They've been asking around about this local hero everyone calls the mayor, a vigilante or some shit. I think they figure if they kick the ass of the local hero, everyone else will know to stay out of their way. Daniel smirked. Apparently, his informant didn't know everything. Okay, do these steel wolves have a local base or something like that? Yeah. We've got a house they're renting in D.C. until they take over their new neighborhood. The informant rattled off the address. If you're planning to go talk to these guys, bring lots of cash. You won't be able to appeal to their better natures. They're pretty vicious and into the full package of rape, murder, and assault. The only reason they got away with shit for as long as they did was that they bribed a lot of local cops. But from what I've heard, people were actually grateful that the other gang all but wasted their asses. Threw them a block party, I hear. Daniel chuckled with dark humor. Okay, I think I've got what I need. I'll send the rest of the payment in a few minutes. Thanks. I always like making easy money. The agent stared out his window with a frown. His initial suspicions about the pests had been confirmed. They were thugs without deep ties to any stronger organizations. The fact that they thought his neighborhood was ripe for invasion because of the lack of other gangs proved how short-sighted they were, and now they would pay for that mistake. You should have done a little more recon, assholes, before you decided to start kicking people around. The memory of Tommy's battered face lingered in his mind. Daniel realized the boy was lucky to be alive. The gang might not be so nice the next time they ran into him. I tried to be nice about this, thought Daniel. I really did try, but they had to break my rules repeatedly. And when you break the rules, you have to be punished. That's simply the way things are. Daniel started his car. He had a meeting to attend at the CIA, but his afternoon was clear. There was plenty of time for a little meet and greet with the Steel Wolves. Maybe he'd pick a few toys up before that. Nessie probably wouldn't mind alone. He could chalk it up to field testing. Sloppy. That was all the agent could think as he watched the Steel Wolves hideout. Everything about them, from their exterior security to their cars, was sloppy. Even if he didn't live in Old Town, he doubted they could take it over. But that didn't mean they couldn't hurt a lot of innocent people in the process. You were arrogant before and you lost most of your gang. You're arrogant again, now you'll lose the rest. He'd had the house under surveillance for several hours when a thug came over to his currently white Jaguar and knocked on his window. Daniel had expected this for a while. It wasn't like he was hiding, and his fancy car didn't exactly blend in with the local vehicles. Calmly, he rolled down the window. Can I help you? The man's gaze roamed the car. Yeah, nice car. Haven't seen you around here before, but you're waiting out here? Why were you waiting? You a cop? 'Cause we ain't done nothing illegal and you can't prove shit. He grinned. And I wouldn't try to arrest nobody by yourself if you know it's good for you. These guys are bold, thought Daniel. Stupid, but bold. Nope, not a cop, no arrest. Daniel shrugged. And I'm not waiting out here. I'm counting. The thug frowned. Counting? The agent turned off the thermal scanning mode of his borrowed AR glasses. He confirmed over 24 men inside. That had to be the bulk of the gang, given their prior losses. He shrugged. Yeah. I wanted to see how many of you guys were in there before I decided how I'd approach you. Your whole gang in there? The man frowned. Who the fuck are you? Daniel almost snorted. If he had good tactical awareness, he would have approached the vehicle with his weapon already out. If he had piss-poor skills, he would have pulled it by this point. Instead, he blustered. Arrogance was a weak weapon in a firefight. Being cocky didn't save you from a bullet. I should take you out right now to make a point, but I've got a plan, thought Daniel. You're stupid, and I'll use that. He shrugged. I'm the man who has a proposition and a lot of money to offer the Steel Wolves. I've heard you get things done, and I need men like that. Tough men who know their way around. The people I work for sometimes need street operatives to handle certain matters of violence. And, shall we say, independent pharmaceutical distribution, we'll call it. Huh? Independent what? Daniel rolled his eyes. Drug dealing. It took all his self-control not to add the word idiot to the end of the sentence. Oh yeah, need some street slingers? We're down with that. The man's eyes gleamed with greed. Nice fucking car, nice suit, in the know. You're connected? He nodded. This was almost too easy. They say you can't con an honest man. If he wants to think I'm mafia, that'll make this even easier. The thug gestured toward the house. Yeah, the whole gang's in there. I've got a few guys in the slam, but don't worry. They know how to keep their mouths shut. If you need them to do anything for you while they're in there, we can arrange that too. Daniel stepped out of the car and slipped on some gloves. No point leaving fingerprints to complicate his life later. Loyalty is a good quality in any organization, he said. I'm glad to see you already have that. I knew I could make a good choice in approaching you. Yeah, no bitches or snitches in the Steel Wolves. He slammed a fist into his palm. You give us a little of your sweet mafia cash and we'll do whatever you need. We're pushing into Old Town Alexandria right now. Nice neighborhood, just aching for a little more presence, you know? We could do good things there with dealing if you're supplying us. Or if you need us to lean on people as part of collecting protection money, we can do that too. The agent forced a smile. Glad to hear you're so industrious. His companion bobbed his head. Yeah, we're fucking geniuses, you know? The man opened the door and stepped inside. Daniel followed him and reached into his pocket to activate a broad spectrum frequency jammer. He didn't want anyone calling for help when the pain began. A dozen men sat in the living room around 2 tables. They were drinking beer and playing cards. Light chatter filled the room, and most people barely spared a glance Daniel's way. The thug from the grocery store sat at one of the tables. He looked up and his eyes widened. Panic crossed his face. That's the guy from the store, he shouted. Silence swept the room, and everyone looked at the front door. Daniel sighed. So much for this being a complete surprise. It didn't matter. He still wanted to give them one last chance. Who's in charge of the Steel Wolves? He asked. A wiry man with scars covering his face stood up from one of the tables. I'm T.E. I run things. Now who the fuck are you? And why shouldn't I cap your ass? His deep voice didn't fit his small stature. Daniel held up a finger. Shaking down a grocery store, another finger went up. Mugging a store owner and his daughter, another finger. Attempted arson, a 4th finger. And beating the shit out of a random teenager. The last was just petty bullshit. He shook his head. It's hard to overlook that, you know? T.E. shrugged and looked around. This bitch doesn't seem to like what we've done. What do you say to that, boys? Maybe we all get on our hands and knees and beg his forgiveness. The assembled gang members laughed and hooted. The agent shook his head. Just wanted to check. Hey, is your entire gang here? From what I could tell, they were, but I wanted to make sure. Why, you scared? T.E. smirked. Yeah, I was talking with my boys earlier about what we would do if we got our hands on the asshole who's been fucking with our guys. And I'm guessing that's you, Mr. Slick Suit. Let me guess. You're the asshole they call the mayor. Some people call me that, sure. The thug who brought Daniel in closed and locked the door. T.E. nodded and rubbed his chin. What, you think you're some kind of superhero that you can sweep in and save the day from the big bad wolves wandering in to eat the sheep? Real life don't work like that. Daniel narrowed his eyes, remembering Buckley's boat and his speech about becoming a wolf. No, you've got it all wrong, T.E. How's that? He allowed himself a feral grin. You're not the big bad wolf. I am. The gang leader shook his head and laughed. You probably thought you could come in here and challenge me one-on-one or some bullshit like you've seen in a movie. But it ain't gonna go down like that. He gestured around. Gangs are strong because we work together. The agent chuckled. Now, that's not very fair. Too fucking bad for you. T.E. pointed at Daniel. This fucker has the balls to walk right in here after everything he's done. I admire that. But the Steel Wolves can't have some fucker thinking he can hurt our guys and get away with it, can we? If we don't make an example, people will say we're weak. What do you say to that, boys? Should we let him go? Fuck that, the men shouted in unison. Daniel took a few deep breaths, and his heart rate picked up, not from fear, but from anticipation. No one could say I didn't try to be reasonable, and you really, really should have left Tommy alone. T.E. pointed to the thug near the door. Jay, grab him. We're going to make this last nice and long. He'll be begging us to put a bullet in his head by the time we're done. Jay reached for Daniel. The agent grabbed his arm and pinned it behind his back in one fluid motion. Too damn slow, Daniel spat the words. Your gang is sloppy and filled with idiots with no discipline. No wonder so many of you died in Baltimore. The group glared at him. T.E. shook his head. You ain't getting out of here alive, bitch. We're going to carve you up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Funny, Daniel replied. I was about to say the same thing to you. Okay, maybe not that exact simile. He snapped Jay's neck and let the body drop to the ground. Let's do this shit. The gang members' confusion and rage took a few too many seconds to kick in. Daniel already had a flashbang hurtling toward the center of the room by the time they went for the guns. Seconds later, blinded men jerked their arms around, their guns in hand but their blurry vision denying them a clear shot. Heavy footsteps sounded upstairs. Daniel whipped out his pistol, ignored the throbbing ache from his shoulder, and methodically put a single round into the chest of man after man until he ran out. Their cries and the thuds of their bodies as they hit the ground formed a song of death, but he didn't let it distract him. He rushed forward and snatched a gun from a blinded man, shot him with his own weapon, and used his body as a shield and put rounds into the gang members coming down the stairs. Their bodies rolled down to form a pile of dead men. The agent dropped the body and reloaded his gun, then stepped over the tangle of limbs and bodies and stalked slowly upstairs. Calm and quiet, he stopped before he reached the top and listened for a moment. His count told him he hadn't killed everyone yet, and he could hear heavy breathing right around the corner. Finally, someone with a little tactical discipline. Daniel pulled a sonic grenade out and bounced it off the top of the wall after priming it. "What the fuck?" Someone to the right yelled as a high-pitched whine sounded. Several men thudded to the floor. He immediately crested the stairs. Several men lay groaning on the floor. He fired 2 bullets into each man before ejecting his magazine and reloading. The agent performed a quick mental count. Between the men he killed coming up the stairs, on the top floor, and in the living room, there should have only been a couple of gang members left. It was time for a little hunting. Daniel made his way down the hall to 2 closed doors and reactivated his thermal scan. He looked around, including down, trying to distinguish any new thermal signatures. Killing a man might only take seconds, but it took the dead body a while to cool down. One man crouched in a room at the end of the hall, and there was another in the room just to his left. He aimed through the door to his left and squeezed off several shots. The man jerked with each hit before collapsing. The agent turned off the thermal scan and kicked the door open to check on the body. Lifeless eyes stared at the ceiling. Daniel shook his head. "I gave you assholes so many warnings, but you didn't fucking listen. It's like you wanted me to come and do this." The thud of boots on wood caught his attention, and he jumped into the hall with his gun raised, only to be bowled into by a charging thug. His gun flew out of his hand and hit the stairs, bouncing toward the first floor. He landed hard on his back. The man on top of him got in a few good punches. "You're fucking dead, you son of a bitch," the criminal roared. "Without your gun, you're just waiting to die." More powerful blows hammered down on Daniel, his head bouncing with each one. The agent flicked his wrist and slapped the back of his watch against the ground. A needle popped out. He stabbed it into the thug's neck. "I'm never unarmed," he explained carelessly. The man hissed and rolled off Daniel. He rubbed the wound and pulled a gun from his waistband. A few seconds later, the gun dropped from his hands. His eyes moved, but the rest of his body was rigid. Daniel stood and looked down at his suit with a sigh. "Bloodstains are very hard to get out, you know." He marched over to the downed man and picked up the gun. Single-use paralytic agent. The injector's not always reliable. He shrugged and shot the man between the eyes, then dropped the weapon on top of the body. "That should be all the ones I saw, and even if they still have guys left, they're done as a gang. Shit, I'll need some good makeup to cover the bruises." He headed down the stairs, plucked his gun up, and made his way over to the body of the first thug he'd encountered, the man from the grocery store. The criminal wasn't dead. He coughed up blood as he stared up at Daniel with terror in his eyes. The agent sighed and shook his head. "Okay, I didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here goes. No dogs, no family, no kids." He put 3 rounds in the man to finish him off. His job complete, he holstered his gun and ran a hand through his hair before grabbing a second phone. It was time to call Lydia at Purity Solutions for a little cleanup. Going all out against criminal trash didn't risk his cover, especially since there was no one left alive to tie him to their disappearance. Lydia's team would take care of all the physical evidence. Daniel chuckled. "All these contacts I've cultivated will come in handy, especially now that I'm trying to get my new life to work. Like a damn Russian doll. Got my identity working with Tim inside another identity working for the company, inside another identity working the shop, and constantly changing last names. No problem. I should be able to make this work." He headed toward the door and looked over his shoulder one last time at the slaughtered gang. "I really did try to warn you. It's like my friend Akito used to tell me. Even Buddha gets mad after the 3rd time." And that is it for today. Tomorrow, chapters 27, 28, and 29. Hope you all have a very good Tuesday, June 2nd, and I will talk to you later.